all are in this wide, wonderful, beautiful world that we live in. You are very welcome to the Soft and Systems Size to Sales. Got my good friend Shay Lynch on my right, and I'm on his left. And today we're talking about growth opportunities, and it's really to look at overcoming challenges faced by your sales team. We'll see you in a few moments. Hey, welcome back. Today's a big topic. As we normally, every week, we engage in different topics, but this one's quite different in terms of challenges that your team face. And I think when we both spoke about this, we were talking about resilience, but there's so many more challenges around that. But I think resilience is one of those big things that your team has to really embrace because it can really help you or it can really hinder you depending on the way our brains are wired and fired together. So when we talk about resilience, let's talk about our personal resilience, and then maybe let's swing it back to the team's resilience as well, because it, it's a big challenge out there. So what do you think about this, Shay?
Ooh, big question, Jason. And there's many layers to it, right?
Yeah.
So, if you were asking me where would I start with all of this, Jason, right? And again, knowing sales team, traditionally they're very individual people. They like to do their own thing, be accountable and be autonomous
Mm,
and check in on a once a week. That suits some people, Jason. But even if you get into that routine, there's a negative side of it. You've no one to share your stresses or shadow board, soundboard, or anything, Jason. You're on your own and it can become lonely.
yeah.
The reason why I say that, if I'm a sales leader, the first thing I like to promote would be working together to make it better, right?
Yeah.
Supporting each other, is helping each other. Even when people are struggling, how can we solve their problems, one individual's problems together? They're struggling with their cohort of prospects, whatever their messaging is, it's not landing. How can we all help that person to improve their messaging? And for the other salespeople to share, well, what's working for them, right? And this is, you mentioned challenges. I believe it's a great focusing on challenges, Jason, is a great way to like instigate and catalyze a really good, strong team bond.
Mm,
So I use problems. You talk about growth. For me, the first element to growth is solving problems. Be efficient and effective with the time and resources you have. Then you're in the right place to actually scale and grow.
mm,
It all starts with getting the team bond and looking at the big challenges within the team, both as a team level, but also, and even there, Jason, you can look at the problems at different levels: market problems, customer problems, team problems, individual problems. There's layers to that as well. And you work on them little by little. Rome wasn't built in a day, and it's a journey. And that's the type of culture you want to build. And this, going back to your point about resilience, this for me is the foundations for resilience.
mm. Yeah, and I think some of the best things to think about is ego and egocentricity. And it's really to push that to the side. Like, it's good to have a good ego. It's good to feel good about yourself. It's good to want to be challenging, be curious about other things. But when, as you say, working together as a team, we know that the typical salesperson can be out on his own, but to draw that back in, because not everyone's perfect, someone needs help at some point for whatever it might be, their mental health, or it could be a challenge, because it is an emotional roller coaster.
Mm,
Like we've discussed this offline as well as online, is sometimes people don't get back to you, and that can really stress you out as an individual contributor. So when you're in a sales team as an individual contributor, because you've got to maximize your own results, you've got to see sales coming in. And when you get ghosted by a client and a customer, it can get very stressful.
Mm,
So let's have a look at those resilience part of that. And it's maybe down to a sales manager, sales team to be a little bit of a shoulder to cry, and not in a bad way, but just the way said, well, what have you done differently this week? Okay, that person didn't react when you sent an email or when you called or whatever, but who else are you speaking to? So such a future proof where they need to be going, as opposed to be retrospectively looking at the past, because you can't change the past is gone. So you have to start to go, well, where are you now? Who else do you need to speak to? You're not speaking to that person, but how can we speak to other people?
excellent, Jason, and spot on. And that's it. You can't change the past. You can only learn from it and not repeat the same mistakes,
Mm,
right? But here's the thing, Jason. Nothing works all the time, every time. It's not the way it's supposed to be. That's just the way the world works. You have
mm,
days where nobody answers your phone and nobody answers your emails. And you wonder, is your voicemail, does it come with a virus attached?
yeah.
That's just the way the world works. It's not you. People are busy. Maybe they're not ready to talk to you. Maybe they don't know what to say to. Maybe they have to spend the time absorbing an email and gather their thoughts before they get back to you. Maybe they're just busy and overwhelmed with other things. It's all about not putting it on you all the time and saying, "What's wrong with me?" This
Mm,
is life. It's
yeah.
not supposed to be nice. It's supposed to be business, right? And a big part of resilience, Jason, is, like, again, people sharing their pains and their struggles. If you keep it all inside, Jason, you're not going to get anywhere. They're going to grow and grow, and then you're
Yeah.
in a state and you don't know how you got there. It's usually a depressive state. So as a leader, the reason why I say this, as a leader, it's about you drawing this out of each individual member of your team, building strong, open, and honest relationships. And I always say, as a leader, you should not just be their boss, you should be their counselor and their friend as
Yeah.
well, right? And build open relationships. They have that safe space with you.
Yeah, and I'm reflecting on the time that I've worked with people, but also been part of a team as well, and the support that I got. I can reflect back 20 years ago, and who was the CEO, but I could. I was going through something at the time. I don't know. I was feeling very sick, and also couldn't connect with a few of the buyers or whatever it might be. And he just said, "Oh, Jason, you want to come into the office?" So I went to the office. Said, "Is everything all right? Are you okay?" And that really just calmed me down. It allowed me time to speak. And what that leader needs is that empathetic ear to really listen. And that's one of the core skills that that leader had, to really listen, to understand without judgment, without that, and just get myself back on track. And ironically enough, he said, "Look, just go home this afternoon. You'll be back tomorrow. I know you'll be fighting fit." And I was a bit sick as well. So that really didn't help the equation with what was going on in my head at that particular time. But you start to look at those attributes of those leaders having that ear. And the next day I went back in and I absolutely smashed it.
Mm.
So the time taken out was the time to recover. And the leader actually suggested that was the right thing to do at that right particular time. And I think that's the wisest thing, that as a leader, to actually compel compassion. Obviously, you got to hit your numbers, you got to hit everything else, but sometimes take a step back to jump 2 paces forward.
Totally. Totally. It's never a straight line, Jason.
Mm,
It's a squiggle, right? It's a squiggle. And squiggles is like, it's like, if I compare it to people trading on the marketplace, right? And they get scared, they see a dip and then they want to get out, right? But that's only a short dip, a short-term dip. That doesn't mean it's always going to keep dipping. And
yeah.
people, the fear comes in, right? When if they just ride the storm, then they say, okay, it's going to come good. And it's the same thing, Jason. People, we always need to ride the storm, because there will be storms. And that, as you said, that could be on a personal level where you're not feeling well,
Mm.
you're struggling, you don't have the mojo, your energy for sales. And energy is very important in sales when you're
Yep.
meeting potential clients. Like, energy is contagious, right? So it's very hard to pretend if you're not feeling well. Sometimes you're better off not meeting people if you're not 100%,
Yeah.
because you'll only get one chance, right? And it's important to make sure that chance is very effective. Okay. So it is, and we've a similar mindset in many things. We both like to keep healthy. We both do a lot of running. We eat well. So again, if I was a leader, I would be looking to see how I can support their health as well. Obviously,
Yeah.
not tell them what to do. You can't do that, but help them make better decisions. Not everybody's as educated as some about health strategies, Jason. You know, and help them be healthy, healthy mind, healthy body, and bring them. So that's why I always say the role of a leader is not just to be their leader. And you say this a lot: coaching,
Mm.
mentoring, friendship, counseling. There's so many things as a leader you should be, to give that person the best chance of being the best they can be, right? Because that's
Mhm.
your goal, to make them the best they can be. You have a place in the game for that. And you can't just say, oh, they're not very good. Well, did you help them be good? No, and that's very important.
And sometimes you have to lead by example. Not do I say, not what I do, but sometimes you have to show the way. This is what works for me. Might not necessarily work for you. I'm not saying go out and meditate every day or sit in a hill or whatever, or go to green spaces. But if you did, that might work, and helping you to be driving for your success. So again, adaptability, especially in challenges. How can you adapt? I'm not going to tell you how to adapt. What do you need to do to adapt? Ask some really good questions. How have you adapted before in the past? What did you do specifically? How can you work with that within what you're doing right now to adapt to that challenging client that you're facing? Because you can get anxiety and you get that, maybe that imposter syndrome, because you're meeting the CEO and the team member might be young, so they might get imposter syndrome, or they might get something else in their head because they visualize stuff that never happened. Something that I read today actually was huge amounts of people get that imposter syndrome. They visualize stuff that never actually happens, and that fear complex. Like we're all people that go out and meet clients all the time, and I know you're going to be meeting a client a bit later on, but it's the perception of people when you look at them up and you do your research and all that. They can get that imposter syndrome in advance because they visualize too much about maybe things going wrong, or they put them up on a pedestal, and then
Mm.
that fear comes along. So it's
Yeah.
down for you as a manager just to like level that. They're only human
Yeah,
at the end of it.
exactly. And I'd love to just to call over to what Jane has said. I love what she has said about, they are human, treat them at a human level, and treat them the way you want them to treat your customers or potential customers. I
Mm,
couldn't say it any better, Jane, because it's all about that. And Richard Branson has a saying: look after your teams and they'll look after your customers, right? If you're not looking after your teams, can you expect them to look after your
yeah,
customers? Right? It's very, very important. And it sounds simple, but it's not always executed
yeah.
like that. And it's very important. So thanks for sharing that, Jane.
Yeah, that's a really good thing to share, actually. And something while I was thinking, and I just wrote a little note about that. It's not personal.
Mm.
Nothing in business personal. It's it's not the right place. It's not the right time. They're not affecting you personally, unless you've really done something bad. But it's not about you. Maybe it's about not the right time. It might not be the right product. It might not be the right service for them. If they say no, it's no, not right now. It can be something in the future. So whether they believe that, if you're getting disappointed now, maybe find out from the client and get some feedback, or get some feedback from your client, or get some feedback from your colleagues about what they're hearing from how you're approaching it. And maybe your colleagues can actually help and mentor you and give you some solid sound advice to engage, and I always like to shadow people as well. So I've shadowed people, and people have shadowed me. It gives you different ideas and different perspectives, and go, right, or this, they could be saying the wrong thing. Oh, picked up something really great today. And that's a really good way to overcome any challenges that your team members might be facing. Tag team is always great.
Yeah, yeah. Well, look, even in meetings when I'm like, if there's a like as you we've done, Jason, past, we've collaborated on projects, and
Yeah.
you go to some sales meetings sometimes with other people, and just listen to what other people do very well. They're great learning.
Mm,
It's not just about getting business, but you're listening to other people do what they do really well. And it's great because there's no one size fits all. There's always something to learn, Jason. Even when things aren't going well, there's always something to learn. So again, if we go, but like if we segue back to building resilience with teams,
mm,
as I said, it can be a lonely game, right? You can get a lot of no's before you get a lot of yeses, right? And it takes time. It really requires resilience in sales, right? And learning to see it as a way, like in terms of as a mechanism that, okay, I'm gonna get so many no's before I get a yes. Know that going in. And then
mm,
making sure when you get the yes, it's worth all the no's, right? And build it out. When I started sales, and like I hadn't got a clue what I was doing, Jason. When I had my business in the renewable energy company, what, 2007, God, nearly 17, 18 years ago now. I had no idea what I was doing. All I could do was rely on my process skills, and I built the process. Then I realized, well, my communication skills matter too. And
mm,
then it's not just about communication. Well, being strategic about any time I had a touch point with a customer, what was the best way to move to the next step in the process? Not to get
mm,
the sale, the next step, and the mini conversions along the funnel, right? And I learned really good mechanism because every time I got blocked, I thought of a better way to get unblocked. And I went from starting, I think I read my first rule was the 5% rule that I read online when I was Googling how do you do sales. It said the 5% rule. You have to make 100 calls to get 20 meetings to get 5 sales. That was my first metric to work off. And when I got that, and it did take me like a lot of calls to get my first sale, as you know, and that was amazing. But then the better I got, I learned I didn't always need new leads. I just had to get better at servicing the funnel, building a buying experience for the customers,
mm.
learning how to add value before the sale,
Yeah.
build all those mechanisms and I got up to 70 odd percent at one stage, Jason. So it's all about taking, and I only had this conversation with someone earlier on about the importance of process when you're building sales, right? Something to fall back on, not to be robotic, but know there's a step process that we know if you do it X amount of times, you'll get results. And then you bring you the best version of you anytime you have a touch point with a client or potential client. And then you have something to measure against.
Yeah, I absolutely concur. Ironically enough, I had a meeting a little while ago, and the funny thing was, wanted me to teach people to have a mindset. I was going, well, it's not about me it's it has to come from them. It has to come from the person to be self accountable. And I know we've spoken about this quite a bit, but I can help you get a great mindset, but you have to buy into it to want to do it. It's not, there's only so much you can help and advise people and ask questions and so on and so on. But if they're not helping themselves, how can they help other people to get what they want?
Mm,
So there is a part of that. And it's really to understand where they're at as maybe as a team leader. It's to really understand their body language and to see if something is in line and congruent, my favorite word of the year, and to get the best out of them. So you have to make sure that you're relating to them and you're building up that rapport so they can engage better with their clients better, because some things are just holding them back, whatever that might be. But we have to lower that and make sure that they engage with people in a better way. So people's mindset at that particular time is just so important. And again, that goes on with that resilience how can they just get up and just move on forward and just brush that off and go, well, that happened there. And as you say, a plan is really good. Like, I'm not a massive believer in a script or anything like that, but I think it's good to practice a script. But then when you are actually engaging with a client, it's to make it fluid.
Oh yeah, totally. Like I like you, I don't believe in scripts, but if I'm meeting a potential client, I want to walk away knowing 5 things at least,
Yeah.
right? And then I'll mark them in my database. And the reason why that's important, Jason, right? And both if things went well, but things didn't go well. But because if I
Mm,
do that for every sales meeting I have, at the end of the month, I've got really good data to say what worked well, what didn't, what do I need to change next month, right? You can keep improving your script, what you say, handling objections. Why didn't customers buy from you? They went with the competition. This all is great information so you can make a better proposal next time, right? Or
mm.
tighten up a loose gap in a proposal and close off, or cover something or add something to your service that you didn't have before because it lost you projects, right? So there's so much information that you can take. So I like to say 3 or 4 things or ask questions in the course of conversation and walk away knowing I got that information.
Yeah, I totally concur. And then you can even put that, look, whatever works for you, ideally in an ideal world, that you put all the information onto a CRM. Salespeople can
Excel
be
for me.
lazy, as we know.
I don't need it. Like,
Yeah, whatever works, but keeping the admin down to a minimum and then putting the stuff on there. For me, I do a monthly review, and then I put a whole assessment on how I'm feeling, and then conversations that I've had during the day. I write notes on everything that I do. I do it as a daily thing. I don't put it on the weekend, but even my health, my mental state, my spiritual state, my exercising experiences and all of that. But I'm doing it to learn, to grow. But it's, again, as you say, it's to have some reflection paths on what went well, questions that you did ask. Did they work? Did they hit home? Were you listening enough to really understand them? Have you done your due diligence well? All of these things that after the conversation can be a little bit of gratitude. And when we talk about resilience, good things that went well for you, even if you didn't achieve the main goal, but even if you just pushed it forward to the next state, some things that you can actually help you just feel better about yourselves, just to help you excel and move forward. But obviously, the key thing is to learn.
Absolutely, Jason. And another thing to talk about that, because your mindset absolutely is very important, specifically in sales, right? Because you're going to get a lot of objections, right? And it's very easy to take them personally too, right? And sometimes your potential clients could make it a little personal. That's all tough, Jason.
Yeah.
You have to have a hard skin, right? You have to keep getting up. And this is where I believe the leadership role is to draw this out. How did you get on? Did you have any tough prospects or clients this week? Do you need to talk about anything?
Mm.
Right? Because this is all part of building that mindset of resilience. Because stress, Jason, and again, sales, sales is the hardest part of business, right? So much responsibility on it, and it's tough. People don't see the work in the background that needs to be done when it comes to sales. It
Mm.
is tough. And it's important to ensure you've got a team that are tough, that
Yeah.
can take it, and you've got a responsibility to ensure they are that.
So a couple of things when we're talking about objections is like a 4-step process is to acknowledge their objection is when you're there. Uh, and it's something that you should really practice with your manager or within your team, these certain objections that will come up. And then you can be a little bit more helpful and a little bit more resilient about it. So acknowledge it, maybe question it, question
Mm,
what makes you think that way, and then reposition yourself and check in. Because what you want to do is resolve the situation, especially when you're with a client. But then your manager, your CEO, or whoever you report into, it's up for that to practice those scenarios so you become good at them. So
Exactly. And I've actually saved potentially lost contracts by handling objections, and also when they told me I wasn't successful, having an honest and frank conversation. Look, I'd love to get feedback. Where did I fall down?
yeah,
And then I've often added in at the end, so what would it take to win the deal?
yeah,
Right. And I've done it, and it has been successful. Not every time, Jason,
yeah.
but it has worked because it's a part of my process that I make sure I follow up after. And part of that follow up is what would it take to change your mind? Right.
Yeah. If you're lucky enough to get feedback, that's the key thing. It doesn't
Not
happen all
everybody's
the
going to
time.
give it to you, Jason, but you have to try.
Yeah,
It's not part of your
absolutely.
process. You'll never know.
If you don't ask, you never know. So
Mm.
that's the core thing. Look, I think we're hitting our witching hour. I think there's been a good conversation today because it is one of those subjects which is close to our hearts because overcoming challenges, roadblocks, or whatever. And I think resilience is one of those things. Resilience mindset, whatever you want to call it, it is. And after coaching lots and lots of people, I can see it everywhere. And it is one of those things, regardless whether you're hugely experienced or whether you're new to the business, it happens at every stage of your career. So having that and to remember to use it and utilize it is one of those core things.
Brilliant. Absolutely, Jason. Great as always to be on these sessions.
Yeah, excellent. Well, she'll see you on the next time of the soft and system size 2 sales, and we'll be looking at something else next time. Have a great day.